The stagecoach rattled into Calistoga, California on a blistering afternoon in June of 1878, carrying a young woman whose heart hammered harder than the horse's hooves against the dusty ground. And when Zara Brennan stepped down onto the wooden platform with trembling legs, she knew the rancher waiting for her would see immediately that she was not the 27 years she had claimed in her letters. The air shimmered with heat as Zara clutched her worn carpetbag, her eyes scanning the small crowd gathered at the station. She had written those letters in desperation, adding 6 years to her actual age of 21 because she feared no man would want a bride so young and inexperienced. Her aunt had died 3 months prior, leaving Zara alone in Boston with nothing but debts and the shame of being an unmarried woman with no prospects. The advertisement in the newspaper had seemed like Providence, a rancher in California seeking a sensible, mature woman to share his life. A tall figure separated from the others, moving toward her with the confident stride of a man accustomed to hard work and harder decisions. He was perhaps 35, with sun-weathered skin and dark hair that fell just past his collar. His eyes, a startling shade of green, fixed on her face with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Miss Brennan." His voice was deep, slightly rough, like gravel smoothed by river water. "Yes," her voice came out barely above a whisper. "Mr. Hayden Owens," he nodded, reaching for her bag. As he did, those keen eyes traveled over her face, taking in her smooth skin, the absence of lines around her eyes and mouth, the nervous way she bit her lower lip. She saw the exact moment realization dawned, his hand pausing halfway to her carpetbag. "How old are you?" The question was direct, without accusation, but Zara felt heat flood her cheeks nonetheless. 21. There was no point in lying now. "I know I said I was older in my letters. I was afraid you would not want someone so young. I understand if you wish to put me back on the next stage. I have a little money saved for the fare back east." She fumbled with the clasp of her small purse, but Hayden's large hand covered hers, stilling her frantic movements. His touch was warm, calloused, surprisingly gentle. "Then we have more years to love." Zara's eyes snapped up to meet his, searching for mockery or jest, but found only sincerity mixed with something that might have been relief. "You are not angry." "Angry." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth, transforming his serious face into something quite handsome. "I am 36 years old, Miss Brennan. I expected a woman nearly my age, set in her ways, perhaps bitter about life's disappointments. Instead, I find a beautiful young woman brave enough to travel across a continent alone and honest enough to tell me the truth when caught." He picked up her carpetbag with ease. "My wagon is this way." Zara followed him in a daze, her mind struggling to process what had just occurred. She had spent the entire 3-week journey west preparing herself for rejection, for the humiliation of being sent back or worse, being stuck in a strange town with no means to leave. She had not prepared for acceptance, for kindness, for words that made her heart flutter in a way she had never experienced. The wagon was sturdy and well-maintained, pulled by 2 strong horses. Hayden helped her up to the bench seat with hands that lingered at her waist just a moment longer than necessary. As he climbed up beside her and took the reins, Zara studied him from the corner of her eye. His profile was strong, his jaw covered with dark stubble that suggested he had risen early to make the journey into town. His hands on the reins were capable and sure. "Tell me about the ranch," she said, needing to fill the silence that stretched between them as they left the small town behind. 300 acres in the valley, about an hour's ride from town. I have cattle, some horses, chickens, and a milk cow. The house is not fancy, but it is solid. I built most of it myself after I bought the land 8 years ago." He glanced at her. "It can be lonely out there." That is why I placed the advertisement. A man can work himself to death and never feel it is enough when there is no one to work for. His honesty touched something deep within her. I know about loneliness, she said softly. My parents died when I was 15. My aunt took me in, but she was not a warm woman. When she passed, I realized I had spent 6 years living in her house but not really living at all, just existing, waiting for something to happen. And now I am terrified and hopeful in equal measure. Hayden's laugh was unexpected, rich and genuine. That is a fair way to feel. I have been terrified and hopeful for months, waiting for your letters, wondering if you would actually come, wondering if we would suit each other. What if we do not? The question escaped before she could stop it. He was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on the road ahead as the wagon climbed into the foothills. Then we will learn to. I am not a man who gives up easily, Miss Brennan, and I do not think you are a woman who traveled all this way intending to fail. The landscape changed as they traveled, the valley opening up before them like a promise. Rolling hills covered in golden grass stretched toward distant mountains, and oak trees provided patches of shade. The air smelled of dust and wild herbs, so different from the coal smoke and sea salt of Boston. It is beautiful, Zara breathed. It is home. The simple statement carried weight. There you can see the ranch. A house sat nestled against a hillside, a barn and several outbuildings nearby. It was larger than she had expected, a proper 2-story structure with a wide porch. Fences marked off pastures where cattle grazed, and she could see horses in a corral near the barn. As they drew closer, an older man emerged from the barn, his weathered face breaking into a smile when he saw them. He was perhaps 60, with silver hair and the bow-legged walk of someone who had spent a lifetime on horseback. That is Marcus Webb, my foreman, Hayden explained. He has been with me since the beginning. His wife Clara cooks for the ranch hands and has been cleaning the house in preparation for your arrival. The wagon rolled to a stop in front of the house, and Marcus approached with undisguised curiosity. So she came after all. Welcome, miss. We had bets on whether the boss would return alone or with his bride. Marcus. Hayden's tone carried a warning, but his eyes held amusement, just making conversation. Marcus winked at Zara. Clara is inside, has been fussing over the house for days like the president himself was coming to visit. Hayden helped Zara down from the wagon, his hands spanning her waist easily. For a moment, they stood close enough that she could see gold flecks in his green eyes, could smell the scent of leather and sage that clung to him. Then he stepped back, gesturing toward the house. Shall we? The interior of the house was cool and surprisingly well appointed. The main room held a stone fireplace, comfortable furniture that showed use but not neglect, and windows that let in generous light. A woman bustled out from what must be the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. You must be Zara. Oh, let me look at you. Clara Webb was round and cheerful, with kind eyes and graying brown hair pulled back in a bun. She took Zara's hands in her own work-roughened ones. Prettier than a picture, is not she, Hayden? Yes. The single word, spoken quietly, made Zara's cheeks warm. I have prepared the guest room upstairs for you, Clara continued, seeming not to notice Zara's blush. Figured you two would want to take your time getting acquainted before. She bustled toward the stairs. Come along, dear, I will show you. The guest room was modest but clean, with a bed covered in a beautiful quilt, a wardrobe, a washstand with a pitcher and basin, and a window overlooking the valley. Someone had placed wildflowers in a jar on the small table. Those were Hayden's idea, Clara said, following Zara's gaze. He rode out this morning before dawn to pick them. Marcus teased him something awful about it. Zara touched one of the delicate blooms, emotion tightening her throat. He did not have to do that. That man has been alone too long, working this ranch until his hands bled, saving every penny, building something worth having. When he finally decided to look for a wife, I told Marcus it meant Hayden was ready to start truly living instead of just surviving. Clara patted Zara's arm. You being younger than expected, that is a blessing. Give you 2 more time together. After Clara left, Zara sank onto the bed, her legs suddenly unable to hold her upright. She had expected so many scenarios, but not this. Not kindness, not acceptance, not a man who picked wildflowers before dawn, not a man who looked at her with something like wonder and said they would have more years to love. A knock on the door frame made her look up. Hayden stood there, having removed his hat, looking uncertain in a way that made him somehow more approachable. I thought you might want to rest before supper. The journey must have been exhausting. It was long, she admitted, but I am too filled with nervous energy to rest. Would you, perhaps, show me around the ranch? His smile was answer enough. They walked together in the late afternoon sun, Hayden pointing out the various buildings and explaining the workings of the ranch. He introduced her to the hands, 5 men who lived in the bunkhouse and worked the cattle. They were polite, if obviously curious about their boss's young bride. We will need to marry soon, Hayden said as they walked toward the horse corral. I know we are strangers still, but propriety demands it. I spoke with Reverend Matthews before I left town. He can come out this Saturday if you are agreeable. That is 3 days away. Zara's heart raced at the thought. Is that too soon? He stopped walking, turning to face her. We can wait longer if you need time. I will not force this, Zara. Yes, you came here to marry me, but you have the right to choose. She studied his face, this man who would be her husband. He had been nothing but kind since the moment she arrived. His ranch was prosperous, his home comfortable. He was handsome in a rugged way that made her pulse quicken. But more than all of that, there was something in his eyes when he looked at her, a tenderness that made her believe his words about having more years to love were not just pretty phrases. Saturday is fine. The words came out steady despite her racing heart. I did not travel all this way to delay what we both agreed to. What we both need, he corrected gently. I need a partner, someone to build a life with. You need a home, security, a place to belong. Those are needs, Zara, but I hope in time we might find we want each other too. The distinction made her chest tight. I think I would like that. They continued walking, eventually reaching the corral where several horses regarded them with interest. A paint mare came to the fence, nosing at Hayden's hand. This is Maple. She is gentle, good for riding. I thought you might like to learn if you do not already know how. I have never been on a horse. Zara reached out tentatively to stroke the mare's soft nose. In Boston, we walked or took carriages. Then I will teach you. A ranch wife needs to know how to ride. He paused. That is, if you want to be involved in the ranch work. Some women prefer to keep to the house. I would like to learn everything, Zara said firmly. I do not want to be a decoration, Hayden. I want to be useful, to truly be a partner, as you said. The look he gave her held approval and something warmer. Then we will start lessons tomorrow. Supper that evening was taken in the dining room, with Clara and Marcus joining them at Hayden's insistence. The food was simple but delicious, beef and potatoes and fresh bread, and the conversation flowed easily. Clara told stories about the early days of the ranch, when it was just Hayden and Marcus and a handful of cattle, living in a shelter barely better than the barn while they built the house. He was 28 and full of dreams, Marcus said with obvious affection. Worked harder than any 3 men I have ever known. Still does, truth be told. Had to practically force him to place that advertisement for a wife. He would have worked himself into an early grave otherwise. "I am not that bad," Hayden protested. "You are worse," Clara countered, "but now you have a reason to come in from the fields at a decent hour." She smiled at Zara. "A pretty reason at that." After supper, Clara and Marcus returned to their small house beyond the barn, leaving Hayden and Zara alone. They sat on the porch as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. "Tell me about your family," Hayden said. "Your letters mention your parents died, but little else." Zara had known these questions would come. "My father was a clerk, my mother took in sewing. We were not wealthy, but we were happy. Then the influenza came, I was 15. They died within days of each other." She swallowed hard. "My aunt was my mother's sister, a widow with no children. She took me in out of duty, not love. She made sure I was fed and clothed, but there was no warmth in her house. When she died, I found she had debts I never knew about. The house had to be sold to pay them. I was left with almost nothing." Hayden's hand found hers in the growing darkness, his fingers intertwining with hers. "You have a home now, and it will be filled with warmth, I promise you that." "Why did you never marry before?" The question was bold, but she needed to understand this man. "I was building something," he said after a moment. "My father was a drunk who could not hold on to anything. My mother died when I was 12, worn out from struggling to keep us fed. I swore I would never be like him, that I would build something solid, something that could not be taken away. I worked other men's ranches for years, saving every penny. When I finally had enough to buy this land, I was 28 and had nothing but dirt and dreams. I told myself I would marry once I had something worth offering a woman. But years passed, and there was always more work to do, more improvements to make. Marcus finally told me I was a fool, that I had more than enough, that I was just afraid. Afraid of what? Of being my father, of failing, of not being enough." His thumb stroked across her knuckles. "Your letters gave me hope. You wrote about wanting a simple life, about valuing hard work and honesty over wealth and status. You made me think maybe I was enough after all." Zara turned to look at him in the twilight. "You are more than enough, Hayden. This ranch, this home you have built, it is remarkable. But even if you had nothing, I think you would still be more than enough." He lifted their joined hands, pressing a kiss to her knuckles that sent warmth flooding through her. "3 days and you will be my wife. The waiting might kill me." She laughed, surprised by the sound. "I feel the same." They sat together until the stars emerged, talking about everything and nothing, and Zara felt the first tight knot of fear in her chest begin to loosen. Perhaps this would work after all. Perhaps she had found not just a home, but something she had not even dared to hope for. The next morning, Zara woke to the sound of roosters crowing and sunlight streaming through her window. She dressed quickly in one of her simple day dresses, braided her long dark hair, and made her way downstairs. The house was quiet, and she found a note on the kitchen table in bold handwriting. "Had to ride out early to check the northern fence. Clara will come by to help you settle in. Make yourself at home. H." The kitchen was well stocked, and Zara found everything she needed to make coffee and toast. She was just sitting down to eat when Clara arrived, bustling in with her characteristic energy. "Good morning. I see you found the kitchen. Hayden left early, did he?" "That man and his fences. I swear he checks them more often than necessary just because he likes riding the property." She poured herself a cup of coffee and joined Zara at the table. "Today we will go through the house properly, get you familiar with where everything is. And I will teach you how Hayden likes his meals prepared. He is not fussy, mind you, but every man has his preferences." They spent the morning together, Clara showing Zara the pantry, the root cellar, the linen closets, and all the workings of the house. The kitchen was larger than Zara expected, with a good stove and plenty of workspace. The parlor was comfortable, lived in but neat. There was a study lined with books that surprised her. "Hayden is a reader," Clara explained. His mother taught him letters before she died, and he never lost the habit. Orders books from San Francisco sometimes. You will find him in here most evenings when the work is done. Upstairs, Clara showed her the master bedroom, larger than the guest room Zara occupied, with a big bed and windows on 2 walls. "This will be your room soon enough," Clara said matter-of-factly. "Though Hayden had me prepare the guest room so you would have your own space until you are ready." The consideration touched Zara. So many things about Hayden surprised her, the small kindnesses that spoke of a thoughtful nature beneath his rough exterior. By midday, Hayden returned, dusty and tired. His face lit up when he saw Zara, a reaction that made her stomach flutter. "How was your morning?" "Educational," she replied with a smile. "Clara has been very patient with me." "Good. Are you ready for your first riding lesson?" Despite her nervousness, Zara nodded. They walked to the corral together where Hayden had already saddled Maple. He spent time showing her how to approach the horse, how to check the saddle and bridle, explaining everything with patience. "Put your foot in the stirrup. Yes, like that. Now grab the saddle horn and pull yourself up." It took 3 tries, but finally, Zara found herself sitting on the horse's back, higher off the ground than she had anticipated. Her hands gripped the saddle horn with white-knuckled intensity. "Breathe," Hayden said with a chuckle. "Maple can feel your fear. Relax your body, trust her. She is the gentlest horse I own." Slowly, Zara forced her muscles to relax. Hayden kept one hand on the bridle, leading Maple in slow circles around the corral. After a while, Zara's death grip on the saddle horn eased, and she began to feel the rhythm of the horse's movement. "Better," Hayden approved. "Now take the reins. I will walk beside you, but you control her." By the time the lesson ended an hour later, Zara was sweaty and sore but triumphant. She had walked Maple around the corral by herself, had even managed a slow trot without falling off. "You did well," Hayden said as he helped her down. His hands at her waist were firm and he lowered her slowly, bringing her close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his green eyes. "Very well. I like it," she admitted. "Being up there, moving with her, I can see why you love it. We will ride together soon across the ranch. I want to show you everything." His voice was low, intimate. "I want to share it all with you." That evening they ate together at the kitchen table, the informality feeling right somehow. After the meal, Hayden led her to his study, showing her his small collection of books. "You can read any of these you like, and if there are books you want, I will order them." "You like poetry," Zara said, surprised, pulling out a volume of Whitman. "My mother used to recite poems. She said they made hard times more bearable, that beauty in words could sustain you when there was little beauty elsewhere." He looked almost embarrassed. "I suppose that sounds foolish." "It sounds lovely." Zara opened the book, finding passages underlined, notes in the margins. This glimpse into Hayden's inner life fascinated her. "Will you read to me?" They sat together on the worn leather sofa, Hayden reading in his deep voice while Zara listened, and the domesticity of it filled her with contentment she had never known. This was what a life together would be like, quiet moments of shared pleasure, building intimacy one small brick at a time. The next 2 days passed in a blur of preparation. Clara helped Zara alter her best dress for the wedding, adding lace from a trunk of things that had belonged to Hayden's mother. Marcus drove into town for supplies, returning with news that Reverend Matthews would arrive Saturday at 2 in the afternoon. Hayden worked the ranch during the days but spent evenings with Zara, teaching her about the land, the cattle, the rhythms of ranch life. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their pasts, their hopes for the future. Each conversation wove another thread of connection between them. On Friday evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Hayden took her hand. "Tomorrow you will be my wife. I want you to know that I will do everything in my power to make you happy, Zara. I know we are still learning each other, but I believe we can build something good together." "I believe that too." She squeezed his hand. "I was so afraid when I left Boston, afraid you would be cruel or cold or that I would be trapped in a worse situation than the one I left. But you have been nothing but kind. You have given me hope, Hayden." He turned to face her, his free hand coming up to cup her cheek. "May I kiss you?" Her breath caught. "Yes." The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question rather than a demand. His lips were warm and slightly chapped, tasting of coffee and something uniquely him. When he pulled back, his eyes searched hers. "Tomorrow," he promised. "Tomorrow you will be mine and I will be yours." Sleep eluded Zara that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with thoughts of the wedding, of what would come after. She was innocent in the ways of men and women, her aunt having told her only that it was her duty to submit to her husband. But the way Hayden kissed her, the gentleness in his touch, suggested that there might be more to it than mere duty. Saturday dawned clear and warm. Clara arrived early, helping Zara with her hair, pinning it up in an elaborate style that made her look older, more sophisticated. The altered dress fit perfectly, the ivory fabric complementing her dark hair and fair skin. "You look beautiful," Clara said with tears in her eyes. Hayden is a lucky man. Downstairs, Marcus had arranged chairs in the parlor, and some of the ranch hands had gathered, cleaned up and wearing their best clothes. Hayden stood by the fireplace in a dark suit Zara had not seen before, his hair combed back, his face freshly shaved. When he saw her descending the stairs, the expression on his face made her feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. Reverend Matthews was a kind-faced man in his 50s who had known Hayden for years. The ceremony was simple, but heartfelt. Zara's hands trembled as Hayden slipped a gold band on her finger, his own hands steady and sure. When the Reverend pronounced them husband and wife, Hayden's kiss was longer than the chaste peck she expected, drawing hoots and hollers from the ranch hands. "My wife," Hayden murmured against her lips, and the possessiveness in his voice sent a shiver through her. They celebrated with a meal Clara had prepared, simple but abundant. There was music, Marcus surprising everyone by producing a fiddle and playing lively tunes that had people clapping and dancing. Hayden pulled Zara into his arms, guiding her through steps she did not know, laughing when she stumbled, holding her close when she found the rhythm. As the sun set and the guests began to leave, the reality of what came next settled over Zara like a cloak. She was married. Tonight she would share Hayden's bed, would become his wife in truth. The thought terrified and excited her in equal measure. Hayden seemed to sense her nervousness. After the last guest departed, he took her hand and led her upstairs, not to the master bedroom but to her guest room. "Your things are still here," he said quietly. "I thought you might want to change into something more comfortable. Take your time. I will be in our room when you are ready." The consideration steadied her. She changed out of the wedding dress into her nightgown, a simple white cotton garment that suddenly seemed too thin, too revealing. She brushed out her hair, letting it fall down her back in dark waves. Taking a deep breath, she walked down the hall to the master bedroom. Hayden stood by the window, still dressed in his shirt and trousers though he had removed his jacket and tie. He turned when she entered, his eyes darkening as they traveled over her. "You are so beautiful it almost hurts to look at you." She crossed the room on unsteady legs. "I confess I am nervous. My aunt told me very little about what happens between a husband and wife." His hands came up to frame her face, his touch infinitely gentle. "We have time, Zara. All the time in the world. We do not have to rush anything. But you have waited so long for a wife, for a partner. I do not want to disappoint you. You could never disappoint me." He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the tip of her nose. "Let me show you how good this can be. Trust me, I do." And she meant it with her whole heart. What followed was a revelation. Hayden was patient and gentle, taking time to learn her body, to show her pleasure she had not known existed. When they finally came together, when he made her truly his wife, there was pain but also something transcendent, a joining that was more than physical. Afterward, he held her close, whispering words of love and promise into her hair while she trembled in his arms. "Are you all right?" His voice was rough with emotion. "Yes." She looked up at him, seeing her own wonder reflected in his eyes. "Is it always like that?" His laugh was low and pleased. "It will only get better as we learn each other. We have years ahead of us, my love, years to perfect this." She snuggled closer, feeling safe and cherished in a way she had never experienced. "I am glad I lied about my age. So am I." He kissed the top of her head. "So am I." The weeks that followed established the pattern of their life together. Zara threw herself into learning the rhythms of the ranch, insisting on helping with chores despite Clara's protests. She learned to milk the cow, to gather eggs, to tend the vegetable garden behind the house. Her riding improved rapidly, and soon she was confident enough to ride out with Hayden when he checked the fences or moved cattle. The physical side of their marriage blossomed as well. Each night brought new discoveries, new pleasures. Hayden was an attentive lover, always making sure she found satisfaction before taking his own. The connection between them deepened, moving beyond the practical partnership they had agreed to and into something richer, more profound. One morning in late July, Zara woke feeling nauseated. She barely made it to the wash basin before losing what little was in her stomach. Hayden was beside her instantly, holding her hair back, his face creased with concern. "Are you ill? Should I ride for the doctor?" "No." Zara rinsed her mouth, realization dawning. "No, I think I am pregnant." The words hung in the air between them. They had been married only 6 weeks. Hayden's face cycled through surprise, then wonder, then pure joy. "A baby. Are you certain?" "Not entirely, but the signs are there. I have missed my monthly courses, and this sickness in the morning, my breasts are tender." She looked at him anxiously. "Is it too soon? We have only just married." "Too soon." He pulled her into his arms, holding her as if she were made of glass. "Zara, this is everything I hoped for." "A child, our child." He pulled back to look at her. "But are you happy about this? I know we have not discussed children much." "I am happy." And she was, she realized. The thought of carrying Hayden's child, of building a family together, filled her with a joy she had not anticipated. "I want this. I want to give you children, to fill this house with life and love." He kissed her tenderly. "We will ride to town today, have the doctor confirm it, and then I am going to take such good care of you that you will grow tired of my fussing." Dr. Harrison confirmed what they suspected. Zara was indeed pregnant, likely due in late February. The older man, who had known Hayden since he came to the valley, beamed at them both. "Congratulations. The first of many, I hope. This valley could use more young families." On the ride back to the ranch, Hayden could not stop smiling. "A father. I am going to be a father. God, Zara, I never thought I would have this." "You deserve this," she said firmly. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." That evening they shared the news with Clara and Marcus, who reacted with the joy of honorary grandparents. Clara immediately began planning, talking about baby clothes and cradles and all the preparations that would need to be made. Marcus clapped Hayden on the back so hard he nearly knocked him over. "You did good, boss. Real good." As fall arrived and Zara's belly began to swell with their growing child, the ranch thrived. The cattle were fat and healthy, the harvest from the garden abundant. Hayden hired an additional hand to take on some of the heavier work, insisting that Zara rest more, though she protested that she felt fine. "You are carrying precious cargo," he would say, his hand resting protectively on her stomach. "Our son or daughter. Nothing is more important than keeping you both safe." The baby became real to them both the first time Zara felt it move, a flutter like butterfly wings inside her. She grabbed Hayden's hand, pressing it to her stomach. "There, did you feel that?" His eyes went wide with wonder. "That is our baby. That is actually our child." "Yes," she laughed at his expression. "Our child is saying hello." As winter approached and Zara's belly grew large, Hayden became increasingly protective. He would not let her ride anymore, barely let her walk to the barn. She found his concern both endearing and frustrating. "I am pregnant, not broken," she protested one morning when he tried to carry her down the stairs. "I know, but you are also the most precious thing in my life, and I cannot bear the thought of anything happening to you." His honesty disarmed her anger. "I love you," she said, the words coming easily now. "I love you so much it frightens me sometimes. I love you too. More than I thought possible. You came into my life and filled all the empty places I did not even know were there." December brought the first snow, dusting the valley in white. Christmas was a quiet affair, just the four of them, but it was filled with warmth and laughter. Hayden gave Zara a beautiful shawl he had ordered from San Francisco, soft wool in deep blue. She gave him a shirt she had sewn herself, the stitching careful and even. "It is perfect," he said, pulling her as close as her large belly would allow. "You are perfect." As January turned to February, everyone on the ranch was on alert. The baby could come any day, and Dr. Harrison had agreed to stay at the ranch for the final weeks, sleeping in the bunkhouse so he would be close when the time came. Zara's labor began on a cold February morning, a cramping pain that woke her before dawn. She touched Hayden's shoulder, and he was awake instantly. "Is it time?" "I think so." The next hours were a blur of pain and effort. Clara and Dr. Harrison attended her while Hayden paced downstairs, refusing to leave the house despite Marcus's suggestion that he ride out and check the herd. "My wife is having our child," Hayden said through gritted teeth. "I am not going anywhere." When Zara's screams echoed through the house, Hayden could not stay away any longer. He burst into the bedroom despite Clara's protests, moving to Zara's side and taking her hand. "I am here. I am right here." "You are not supposed to be here," Zara gasped between contractions. "I do not care what I am supposed to do. I am not leaving you." His presence gave her strength. With Hayden holding one hand and Clara the other, with Dr. Harrison coaching her through each push, Zara brought their child into the world as the sun reached its zenith. "A boy," Dr. Harrison announced, holding up a squalling, red-faced infant. "A healthy boy." Tears streamed down Hayden's face as he watched the doctor clean their son and wrap him in a blanket. When Clara placed the baby in Zara's arms, Hayden sat on the bed beside them, his arm around his wife, staring in wonder at the tiny face. "He is perfect," Zara whispered, exhausted but radiant. "He looks like you," Hayden said, touching one tiny fist with his finger. Their son grasped it, holding on with surprising strength. "God, Zara, we made this. We made this perfect little person. What shall we name him?" Clara asked from the doorway, giving them privacy but unable to resist peeking at the baby. Hayden looked at Zara. "I was thinking Henry after my mother's father. He was the only person in my family worth remembering. Henry Owens." Zara tested the name. "I like it. Henry it is." The ranch hands crowded into the house later that day to see the new arrival, each offering congratulations and awkward but heartfelt advice. Marcus carved a rattle from a piece of oak, presenting it with gruff affection. "For the little boss," he said. "May he grow up strong and smart like his father." As winter gave way to spring, Zara recovered her strength and Henry grew, changing daily. Hayden was a devoted father, taking the baby with him on his rounds when the weather was fine, strapping a sling Clara made across his chest so Henry could ride against his heart while he checked the fences. "People will laugh," Zara warned him. "Let them. I do not care. I am not missing a moment of his life." One evening in April, as they sat on the porch with Henry sleeping in a cradle between them, Zara reflected on how much her life had changed. A year ago, she had been alone in Boston, frightened and desperate. Now she had a husband she loved beyond measure, a beautiful son, and a home that felt like it had always been hers. "What are you thinking?" Hayden asked, seeing her expression. "That I am happier than I ever imagined possible. That lying about my age was the best decision I ever made." He reached over, taking her hand. "I was thinking the same thing. Well, not about you lying, about how grateful I am that you did, about how lucky I am. We both are." She squeezed his hand. "We have years ahead of us," you said, "years to love." "A lifetime," he corrected. "A lifetime of love." The years that followed proved him right. Henry grew into a sturdy toddler, then a bright child who loved helping his father on the ranch. When he was 3, Zara gave birth to twin girls, Emma and Alina, who had their father wrapped around their tiny fingers from the moment they drew breath. Hayden proved as devoted to his daughters as he had been to his son, spending hours playing with them, reading to them, teaching them to be strong and independent. The ranch prospered, allowing them to expand, to build a new barn and additional pastures. They hired more hands as the workload grew, but Hayden never forgot what it was like to be alone, struggling to build something from nothing. He treated his workers fairly, paid them well, earned their loyalty and respect. Zara became known in the valley as a woman of strength and kindness. She helped neighbors in times of trouble, tended the sick, organized community events that brought the scattered ranchers and farmers together. The girl who had arrived from Boston, frightened and alone, had become a cornerstone of the community. When Henry was 10, Emma and Alina 7, and Zara was pregnant with their 4th child, a drought struck the valley. For months, no rain fell. The grass turned brown, the creek that ran through their property slowed to a trickle. Other ranchers lost cattle, some were forced to sell their land. But Hayden, always thinking ahead, had dug wells deep into the ground years earlier, anticipating bad times. Their cattle had water even when others did not. And rather than take advantage, Hayden opened his water sources to neighbors, asking nothing in return. "We help each other," he said when one proud rancher tried to insist on payment. "That is how we survive out here, together." When the rains finally came in the fall, Hayden's generosity was remembered. The bonds he forged during those hard months would last for decades, creating a network of families who supported each other through good times and bad. Their 4th child was another boy, whom they named Thomas. He was a quiet baby, observant and calm where Henry had been active and the twins demanding. Hayden would sit for hours with Thomas in his arms, talking to him about the ranch, about life, about everything and nothing. "He listens," Hayden explained when Zara teased him about his one-sided conversations. "Maybe he does not understand yet, but he listens." As the children grew, the house filled with noise and laughter, with arguments and tears and joy. Zara and Hayden worked as partners in everything, raising their children with love and discipline, teaching them the value of hard work, the importance of kindness, the necessity of standing up for what was right. On their 10th anniversary, Hayden surprised Zara with a trip to San Francisco. They left the children with Clara and Marcus, who had become the grandparents none of them had known, and took the train to the city. It was Zara's first time traveling since she had arrived in California a decade earlier. They stayed in a fancy hotel, ate in restaurants, saw a play, walked through parks. It was magical, but what Zara loved most was simply being alone with her husband, remembering what it had been like when it was just the two of them. "You ever regret it?" Hayden asked as they stood on a balcony overlooking the city. "Marrying me, coming to the ranch, giving up the possibility of a different life." She turned to face him, seeing the man she loved more with each passing year. There was gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes from years of sun and wind. He was 46 years old, and she thought he had never been more handsome. "Not for a single moment. You gave me everything I did not know I needed. A home, a family, love." Real love, Hayden, the kind that grows deeper with time. He pulled her close, kissing her with the same passion he had shown as a young groom. "We have more years to love," he murmured against her lips, echoing the words he had spoken when they met. "So many more years." When they returned to the ranch, they found chaos. Emma had broken her arm climbing a tree. Alina had decided to give all the chickens baths and flooded the coop. Henry had gotten into a fist fight with the son of a neighboring rancher. And Thomas had somehow convinced Clara to let him help cook, and had nearly set the kitchen on fire. "We missed you," Marcus said dryly as they took in the disasters. "The ranch was too quiet without you." Zara and Hayden looked at each other and burst out laughing. This was their life, messy and loud and absolutely perfect. The years continued to pass. Henry grew into a fine young man, tall and strong like his father, with his mother's dark hair and thoughtful nature. He went to Sacramento for university, but returned home afterward, making it clear his future was on the ranch. Hayden taught him everything, preparing to eventually pass the ranch into capable hands. The twins were 17 when suitors began calling, much to Hayden's dismay. Zara watched with amusement as her husband tried to intimidate the young men who came courting, testing them with impossible tasks, questioning their intentions, making sure they understood his daughters deserved to be treated like queens. "They are going to get married eventually," Zara reminded him after he sent one particularly nervous young man running. "You cannot scare them all away." "Watch me," Hayden grumbled, but his heart was not in it. He loved his daughters too much to truly deny them happiness. Emma eventually married a rancher's son from the next valley, a good man who looked at her like she hung the moon. Alina chose a teacher who had moved to Calistoga from Sacramento, a thoughtful man who shared her love of books. Both weddings were grand affairs, the whole valley celebrating. Thomas, now 15, showed more interest in breeding horses than raising cattle. Hayden encouraged this, helping him start a small herd of his own, teaching him about bloodlines and training. "This ranch is big enough for all of you," Hayden told his children. "Henry can have the cattle operation, Thomas the horses, and your sisters will always have a place here if they need it." On their 20th anniversary, the whole family gathered at the ranch house, which had been expanded over the years to accommodate everyone. There were 7 grandchildren now, with more on the way, and the sound of children playing filled the air. Zara stood on the porch where she and Hayden had spent so many evenings, watching the chaos with contentment. Hayden came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist and pulling her back against his chest. 20 years, he murmured into her hair. 20 years since you stepped off that stage, too young and too beautiful, and changed my life forever. We have built something good, haven't we?" She leaned into him, still fitting against him as perfectly as she had that first night. We have built something extraordinary. A family, a legacy, a love story for the ages." He turned her in his arms, looking down at her. There was gray in her hair now, too, lines on her face that spoke of years spent laughing and worrying and living fully. She was 41 years old, and he thought she was even more beautiful than the nervous girl who had arrived so long ago. "I told you we would have more years to love," he said softly, "and here we are with so many more ahead of us." "A lifetime," she agreed, echoing the promise they had made. "A lifetime of love." Henry called them to dinner, and they joined their family, taking their places at the head of a table that groaned under the weight of food and was surrounded by the people they loved most. As they joined hands to say grace, Zara caught Hayden's eye and saw her own joy reflected there. The sun set over the valley, painting the sky in brilliant colors, and the sound of laughter filled the house that love had built. Outside, the ranch stretched out across the land, a testament to hard work and determination. But inside, surrounded by family, Zara and Hayden knew the real treasure was not the land or the cattle or the prosperity they had achieved. It was these moments, this love that had started with a lie about age and had grown into something true and lasting. It was the life they had built together, brick by brick, day by day, year by year. It was the promise kept and exceeded, the hope fulfilled beyond their wildest dreams. As night fell and the grandchildren were put to bed, and the family finally dispersed to their own homes, Zara and Hayden climbed the stairs to the bedroom they had shared for 20 years. The same bed, the same room, but everything changed because they had changed together, grown together, built a life together. Hayden pulled her close as they lay in the darkness, her head on his chest, his hand stroking her hair. "Thank you," he whispered. "For what?" "For being 21 instead of 27, for giving us more years to love, for every single day of these 20 years, for our children, our grandchildren, this life we have made, for everything, Zara, thank you for everything." She kissed his chest, right over his heart. "Thank you for seeing past my lie to the truth, for choosing love over disappointment, for every kindness, every moment of patience, every day of these 20 years. Thank you for building a home and then filling it with love." They fell asleep as they had for 20 years, wrapped in each other's arms, secure in the knowledge that whatever challenges tomorrow might bring, they would face them together. The ranch slept around them, the cattle safe in their pastures, the horses in their corrals, the land prosperous and peaceful. Years continued to add themselves to the story of Hayden and Zara Owens. They watched their grandchildren grow, welcomed great-grandchildren, saw the ranch pass to Henry's capable hands while they settled into a quieter life. But the love between them never quieted, never dimmed. If anything, it grew stronger with time, refined by years of partnership and devotion. On their 50th anniversary, when Hayden was 86 and Zara 71, the whole valley turned out to celebrate. 3 generations of Owens were present, along with friends and neighbors whose own families had been touched by the couple's kindness over the decades. Hayden stood with difficulty now, his joints stiff with age, but his hand was steady as he raised a glass to his wife. 50 years ago, I told this woman we would have more years to love because she was younger than her letter claimed. I thought I was being generous, offering to overlook her small deception. He paused, looking at Zara with eyes that still held all the love of their youth. But the truth is, she gave me a gift beyond measure. She gave me a lifetime of love, a family I treasure more than breath, a partnership that made every burden lighter and every joy sweeter. She gave me everything. There was not a dry eye in the room as Zara stood to join him, moving more slowly than she once had, but with the same grace that had captivated him from the start. And he gave me a home when I had none, acceptance when I feared rejection, love when I thought I would be alone forever. He gave me more than I dared to dream possible. She touched his face, the gesture familiar and tender. Every year has been a gift. Every day with you has been a blessing. They kissed then, these two people who had built an empire of love from nothing but hope and courage, and their family applauded, understanding they were witnessing something rare and precious. True love, lasting love, the kind that endures through decades and trials and triumphs. As the party continued around them, Hayden and Zara slipped away to the porch that had been the site of so many important moments in their marriage. The valley spread before them in the fading light, and Hayden pulled Zara close against his side. "You remember the first time we sat here?" he asked. "Of course. You told me about your father, your dreams for the ranch. I told you about losing my parents, about my aunt. We held hands, and I thought I might actually survive this mad adventure I had embarked upon. Survive it. My love, you conquered it. You became the heart of this family, the center of this community. You took a lonely rancher's house and turned it into a home filled with love and laughter." "We did that together," she corrected gently. "Everything we have, we built together." As darkness fell and the stars emerged, they stayed there. Two people who had loved each other through 5 decades, through good times and hard times, through joys and sorrows. They had raised 4 children, welcomed dozens of grandchildren and great-grandchildren, built a legacy that would last for generations. But more than that, they had kept the promise made on a dusty platform in 1878, when a desperate young woman stepped off a stage and a lonely rancher saw past her lie to the truth of her heart. They had taken those extra years to love, and they had filled every single day with devotion, partnership, passion, and an affection that only deepened with time. The mail-order bride had been younger than her letter claimed, and the rancher had responded with words that would echo through decades. "Then we have more years to love." And they had loved, fiercely and faithfully, building a love story that would be told and retold in the valley for generations to come. A story of how truth can come from lies, how love can grow from uncertainty, how 2 strangers can become one heart beating in 2 bodies. As they sat together under the stars, aged but not diminished, weathered but not worn, Zara and Hayden Owens knew they had gotten it exactly right. The years had been long and sweet, filled with more love than either had thought possible, and they had made every single one count.